It's also Shocktober, the month of October, which is about cardiac awareness, cardiac arrest awareness and defibrillators. Do Australians know what a defibrillator is? Do they know what opportunity they have to actually save their lives if they can use a defibrillator in the workplace? And do they know where they are? And does the private sector have them? Or if you were walking down Collins Street in Melbourne or Martin Place in Sydney or Queen Street in Brisbane, would you know where there was a defibrillator? I'll look at those issues later on in the program. But just before we go, it is October, or in fact Shocktober. Shocktober is an initiative of the Cardiac Arrest Survival Foundation. This is Australia's only charity dedicated to reducing needless deaths from out-of-hospital cardiac arrests. It's also known as Defibrillator Awareness Month. Now, a defibrillator is a device that can shock a heart back into a normal rhythm in the event of sudden cardiac arrest. Now, what we've got to establish tonight is how important is a defibrillator and how aware are we, and I suspect not very aware at all. Sudden cardiac arrest, these are surprising stats, aren't they, is the leading cause of unexpected death in Western society. As you know, it can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time, but in Australia it kills between 23 and 33,000 Australians a year. That's more than car accidents, breast cancer and shootings combined. It's the equivalent of 2 busloads of people dying every single day from cardiac arrest. Early defibrillation is the only chance for victims of sudden cardiac arrest. And for each minute of delay of defibrillation therapy, the victim's chance of survival diminishes by 10%. So in other words, you've got 10 minutes to be treated or you're gone. Later on, I'll speak to a man who died and was saved by defibrillation. But Dr. Graeme Peel is chairman of what they call the AED Deployment Registry, and the AED is an automated external defibrillator, which is a portable device. Graeme's in our studio, Dr. Peel, in Brisbane. Graeme Peel, thank you for your time.
That's fine, Alan.
Just explain in your language what a defibrillator is.
Well, a defibrillator is an electronic device which delivers a measured shock to the front of the chest. And the point of that is to interrupt an abnormal heart rhythm like ventricular fibrillation, ventricular tachycardia in some cases. And the reason why we have to do that is if the heart remains in those abnormal rhythms, then there is very little chance of effective pumping of the blood and therefore lack of oxygen to the brain.
These are staggering figures, aren't they? Between 23 and 33,000 deaths a year, more than car accidents, shootings and so on put together. You're talking about a mobile machine, aren't you? How does that work?
Yes.
How does that work?
Well, the defibrillators can be in various locations. All ambulances carry defibrillators, but ambulances take a long time to get to a location, even in an emergency. So what we're looking at is publicly available defibrillators, and that means in railway stations, airports, bus depots, and in buildings, major commercial buildings and Commonwealth and state government buildings, where the defibrillators are on the wall, accessible, and people can just take them off, and if a sudden cardiac arrest is witnessed, use them immediately.
See, this is Defibrillator Awareness Month. You work in this every day of your life. How many people watching you tonight are aware of whether there is a defibrillator in their workplace or not?
Probably very few. Certainly in Australia, there has not been a good track record of mapping where defibrillators are, of making them obvious to the public or even to workers in buildings. Some companies are much better than others. I've worked for organisations where there's been a very intense focus on making defibrillators available, and those defibrillators have also been monitored They've been connected to a phone line so that they're every hour, every minute of every hour, the quality of that defibrillator is measured, the battery strength, the software, so that it's guaranteed that it'll work when it's taken off the wall.
So talk about
fact,
work.
some of these are so sophisticated that you pull them off the wall, it will automatically call the nearest ambulance station, as well as the security in the building. So that's the ideal. That's what we're looking for.
So a lot of people are scientifically inept, me included. What is involved in learning how to use these? Much?
Not much at all. In fact, the fact that they're automated is the key here. If you've got a group of people in the workplace who are also first aiders or even local workers, ideally you would train them in how to use the defibrillator so they'd have confidence, so they wouldn't have any hesitation in using it. But the reality is that in most locations, anybody, schoolboys through to any member of the public should be able to use the defibrillator. You open it up, it talks to you, it tells you where to put the pads, and there's only 2 locations for the pads, so it's quite easy. It will then tell you whether everything's correct. You stand back, it will analyse the heart rhythm, and it'll decide whether a shock's necessary.
So should people watching you go to work tomorrow and say, look, I saw this bloke, Dr. Peel, on television last night, he's talking about defibrillators. Do we have one in our office? Should people say that to the workplace?
Absolutely. It's just as important as knowing where your emergency exit is in a building or on an aircraft or on a train. If you don't know where your defibrillator is, then you're vulnerable. And there have been many cases where people have unnecessarily died from sudden cardiac arrest, where a defibrillator is relatively accessible.
So if someone was walking,
if you don't know where it is, then that's a major problem.
So if someone's walking down Queen Street, Brisbane, or George Street, Sydney, or Collins Street, Melbourne, how do they know where there's a defibrillator? Should they be aware of this? Are there signs that tell them?
Yeah, there are specific signs, and they're designed to focus people's attention on where a defibrillator is. But the best bet in many cases would be to ask policemen or a local official, or just go into a major building, a major department store, and ask where the defibrillator is. Because they're, as I said, without knowing exactly where they are, it's sometimes a challenge. One of the things that Deployment Registry is looking for, and this has happened overseas, is having a smartphone app where using some form of GPS mapping, defibrillators on the register are logged. So all you'd have to do is go to your smartphone, dial up AED or defibrillator or whatever word you chose, and we'll make sure it's very easy. And it'll say 20 metres down to the left, 1.5 metres from eye height, ready to go. That's the ultimate aim.
Well, I mean, it's serious stuff. This is the leading cause of unexpected death in Western society. Now, basically, the word we're talking tonight is defibrillator. You do have a website, don't you? www.shoctober, SHOCTOBER, October.org.au, and all that information's there.
Yes.
Well done. Yes. Good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Dr. Graeme Peel, www.shoctober.org.au. Let me welcome into the studio Michael Williams. Michael Williams died at Central Station in Sydney. Michael, good evening.
Good evening.
Frightening thing to say, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
You had just finished a job in the eastern suburbs of Sydney as a corporate investigator for Westpac.
Correct.
And you thought, oh, well, I'll get the early train home, which you think,
yes,
and to the Central Coast.
Yes.
And you don't know what happened then?
No, I've got no idea. I was first aware of what had occurred some 2 weeks after the event. I was in St Vincent's Hospital, and my wife informed me I'd had a cardiac arrest and explained the circumstances.
And you died?
I died. My downtime was 16 minutes.
That's it. And you were lucky. There was a defibrillator, I think, 30 metres away?
Very close, yes.
Yeah, and they were trained, this is Sydney, Central Station, Rail Corp staff.
That's absolutely correct.
And a member of the public helped with CPR.
Yes.
A bloke by the name of Kulwinder Singh, was it?
He is the State Rail employee.
Right. Yeah. Kulwinder Singh.
Yes.
And he said your face was blue, but you've got no memory of any of this.
No.
And they first shocked you at 2:53 p.m., you've been told?
I have.
6 minutes after you collapsed.
Yes.
And you've got 10 minutes and you're gone.
Yes.
For every minute, you lose the opportunity of living by 10%.
Correct.
So you're well into it at 6 minutes.
Yes.
So a swift response is important. And then they shocked you again 3 minutes later.
Yes.
And then 1 minute after the paramedics arrived, they worked on you for another 20 minutes.
Yes.
Several more shocks. And then they rushed you to St Vincent's Hospital.
That's correct.
And the shocks were such that they damaged your body, didn't they?
They did.
Just to explain to our viewers what exactly happened to your body.
Well, a number of things. I guess I'm relying on hearsay because I wasn't there.
No.
I was there, but I wasn't aware.
Yes, that's right. And cracked ribs?
I had, thankfully, I had broken ribs and a broken sternum.
The sternum because they were applying CPR.
Yes, they were pressing down properly, as I've been told.
Yes.
You've got to go pretty hard to keep the heart pumping, which saved me, which stopped any brain damage.
It's a lot better than the alternative, isn't it?
Absolutely, no question. No question at all. And I was given a implanted defibrillator in St Vincent's while I was there. 2 months later, I arrested at home, and I was aware of 5 of the shocks I received. And it was like being kicked by a horse.
Amazing.
It was amazing, but it saved me.
But the reality is, since we're talking about defibrillator awareness, if it hadn't been for the defibrillator, I wouldn't be talking to you.
There's no doubt about that whatsoever. I've been back over it, and there were 2 rail staff employees, Kulwinder and I think Cassandra. Firstly, I'm grateful that they had an operational defibrillator there that was working, that the staff had been trained to do what they did, and they got to me so quickly. They saved my life. There's no question about that. And the passenger who gave me mouth-to-mouth, they've never been able to find them. I think about that person. Which is a pity. Yeah. I think about that person every day.
Every minute.
I do.
Every minute.
I do.
And how's your health today?
I'm pretty good, thank you.
That's good. It's a wonderful story, isn't it?
Yes, amazing.
It's a wonderful story, and a story of survival. But you're a metaphor of what we should be doing. So basically, your message is learn the word defibrillator, know what it is, and make sure there's one closer than 30 metres from where you are.
Well, I guess I'm the example, and it works, and it saves lives. And I was gone. I saw the ECG reports, and I departed from this earth, and they got me back, and it was a defibrillator.
Amazing.
And the wonderful care I got at St Vincent's as well, of course. The combination of things, it was just amazing. I often think about it, what's happened and what's occurred. I was given my life back.
Yes, I mean, it is the biggest, this cardiac arrest, isn't it? We just repeat, the biggest killer of out-of-hospital deaths in the Western world.
That's correct.
You've got to say it slowly, haven't you?
Yes.
So people out there, don't start as you assumed I was okay. You must have felt fantastic when you went to Central.
I had absolutely no warning. No warning whatsoever. I remember getting off the suburban train, and as I live on the Central Coast, I had to go across a few stations to get to the Central Coast station. And the last thing I remember is being at Central, getting off the suburban train. I remember nothing else.
Wonderful stuff. Well, Defibrillator Awareness Month it is, all this month. The initiative of the Cardiac Arrest Survival Foundation. Michael is a survivor. Get a defibrillator in the office, know where they are in public places, know how to use them, and check the website, www.shoctober.com.au. I don't want to have to talk to any more Michaels. Great to have you on board, Michael, and it's very instructive to the people who are watching.
Thank you,
All the best and good health.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Michael Williams. We'll take a break and I'll be back after that. Well, we've started a little kerfuffle around here. All the boys on the cameras are saying, where's the defibrillator? And I can't answer the question. And that's what we've got to ask tomorrow when we go to work. And if you catch trains and go to public railway stations or the bus stop, ask, where is the nearest defibrillator?